Muhammad Ali said a lot of things, and one of the things that he said was, I wanted to use my fame and this face that everyone knows so well to help uplift and inspire people around the world. Hi, I'm Brittany Taylor, and I will be talking to you about Muhammad Ali and Parkinson's. Muhammad Ali was one of the most inspirational figures of his time. Even though he's no longer with us, his legacy continues to inspire the masses. Part of that legacy is how to live with Parkinson's disease. 600,000 people in the U.S. are currently living with Parkinson's disease. Each year, 60,000 people are diagnosed with it. You may ask yourself, what is Parkinson's disease? According to the Mayo Clinic, Parkinson's disease is a progressive disorder of the nervous system that affects movement. How would you recognize the symptoms of PD? One thing to look for is tremors in one hand. Many of these symptoms Muhammad Ali had experienced when he was alive. This disorder can cause stiffness and slow movement. In the first stages of this disease, your face may show little or no expression at all, or your arms may not swing when you walk. Your speech may be slurred and soft. People living with Parkinson's experience their neurons breaking down or dying off. As a result of their loss of neurons, symptoms may begin to appear. When there is a loss of neurons, there are no chemical messages being sent to your brain to tell your brain to make dopamine. Dopamine is a type of neurotransmitter in your brain that helps regulate movement and emotional responses. There are several factors that play a role in PD. The first one is age. It's very rare for young adults to be diagnosed with this disease. It commonly begins in the middle or later years of one's life. Ali was one exception to the rule. He was only 42 years old when diagnosed with it. As you get older, the chances of you developing this disease increases. The second risk factor is heredity. If you have a close relative with the disease, that increases the chances for you to develop it as well. The third risk factor is your gender. Men are most likely to be diagnosed with this disease. Another risk factor is exposure to toxins. If you are exposed to herbicides or pesticides for an ongoing time, you may have a slight risk for getting Parkinson's disease. James Parkinson was first to discover the disease, shaking palsy, in the year of 1817. In the same year, he wrote the first essay on the disease. He referred to it as shaking palsy because he saw the most common symptom, the involuntary tremors. In the early years of the 1940s, neurosurgeons began performing surgeries on the brain to help with the symptoms of the disease. While neurosurgeons were hard at work trying to find ways to alleviate the symptoms of the disease, Cassius Sr. and Odessa Clay welcomed baby Cassius Jr. into the world on January 17th of 1942. Cassius Jr. was born at Old General Hospital off of 530 South Jackson Street in Louisville, Kentucky. He grew up with his older brother, Rudolph Valentino Clay, who now goes by the name of Muhammad Ali. When Cassius was 12 years old in 1954, his red bicycle was stolen. He reported the incident to Joe Martin, a policeman as well as a part-time boxing coach at the local gym. Cassius told Martin, "If I find the guy that stole my bike, I'm going to whoop him." Martin asked Cassius if he knew how to fight. It was that exact moment that Cassius thought about boxing. If Cassius and Joe Martin had never met, there may not have been a Muhammad Ali, the once heavyweight champ of the world. In 1957, Cassius won the Kentucky Golden Glove Tournament in the light heavyweight class. Also in 57, the National Parkinson's Foundation was created by Jean Levy. Their purpose was to conduct research and provide expert care so they can make life better for those who have Parkinson's. In the same year, scientists also discovered dopamine. Dopamine, a key factor in PD, is a neurotransmitter that is released by the hypothalamus. In the early 1960s, researchers were able to identify differences in the brains of people who have PD and those who don't. Also, in the 1960s, scientists discovered people with PD have lower dopamine levels than those who don't have the disease. Dopamine is found in the basal ganglia, which is a region at the bottom of the brain that plays a very important role in muscle coordination and movement. In the years of 1961 and 1962, the first successful trials of levodopa, more commonly called L-Dopa, were conducted. According to a video on YouTube called 2-Minute Neuroscience, Parkinson's Disease, L-Dopa is a medication that helps treat PD. The purpose of this medication is to cross blood-brain barriers and increase dopamine levels in the basal ganglia. This drug does not cure PD, nor does it slow the progression, but it does help with the symptoms and improves the person's movement. In 1965, 19 years before he was diagnosed with PD, Cassius joined Elijah Muhammad in the Muslim religion. He also changed his name to the name we all know him as today, Muhammad Ali. In the following year, he was drafted into the Vietnam War, but he refused to go. He claimed that he did not want to go because it was against his religion. Also, he said that he did not want to go to war for a country that was unpatriotic. According to an article written by Hampton Dellinger, Ali said, "If I thought going to war would bring freedom, justice, and equality to the 22 million African Americans living in America, they wouldn't have to draft me. I'd join tomorrow." He felt as though it was not the Vietnamese people who had a problem with the colored people, but it was the people in his own country who treated the colored people wrong. As a result of his decision not to go to war, Ali's license to fight was confiscated in 1967. A few years later, in the early 70s, scientists discovered that adding L-Dopa decarboxylase inhibitor, also called carbidopa, to treatment would help reduce side effects. This drug did not become commercially available until 1975. In 1971, the case against Muhammad Ali for not going to war was dropped. Ali's license and privileges to fight were returned to him. It was back to doing what he loved to do. By the time the 1980s came around, Japanese researchers discovered that there was a pesticide, heptachlor, found in milk that contributes to PD. According to the Centers for Disease Control, every 3 out of 100,000 people died due to this disease in the 80s. Meanwhile, Ali decided that he wanted to retire in the year of 1981 at the age of 39. Even though Ali had retired from boxing, in the public's eyes, he was still a leader with lots of work still ahead of him. One thing Ali had a passion for was peace. He was the type of man to go out of his way to make the world a better place through his humanitarian efforts. Cox Media Group reported during a Gulf War in 1990, he met with the Iraqi leader Saddam Hussein to negotiate him in releasing American hostages. He even took many trips to Cuba in 1996 and 1998. He donated over $1 million to the country since they were protesting against the economic embargo. He spoke as an inspirational speaker at many sporting events as well as worked with various charities. 3 years after Ali retired, he was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. A lot of people have the theory that Ali got the disease from taking so many blows to the head during his boxing years, but some doctors believe otherwise. According to Matthew Hudson from a Science and Health article, his family suggested his disease was due to exposure to pesticides that he experienced earlier in life. But in all truth, no one really knows how Ali got PD. Even Ali himself went on record saying, "No boxer in the history of boxing has Parkinson's. There's no injury in my brain that suggests that this illness came from boxing." Even though we can't say exactly why people get PD, we do know that it's a terminal disease. In the year of 1990, there was a total of 44,000 deaths due to PD, which nearly tripled in 2013, when there was 103,000 lives taken by this disease. Despite the hardships that Muhammad Ali was faced in dealing with Parkinson's, he didn't let it stop him from lighting the Olympic torch in 1996. When he was lighting the torch, you could see that he was having tremors in his left arm. But despite the tremors, Ali made history that day. Ali also contributed his time, effort, and money to establish the Muhammad Ali Parkinson Center in 1997. This center is located in Phoenix, Arizona, and holds many fundraisers as well as provides support to those with the disease by offering effective therapy. Michael J. Fox also has Parkinson's. He was an even bigger exception to the rule than Ali, since he was diagnosed at the age of 29. In 2000, Michael J. Fox created the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's. This foundation collects research and does studies in order to find a cure for the disease. In 2005, the Muhammad Ali Center was opened in Louisville, Kentucky. My teacher and I had the opportunity to visit the Ali Center. I got to go into the theater where I watched a 15-minute documentary about him. After that, I visited some of the exhibits that reflected important things about Ali. Things like the red bicycle, his boxing gloves, and some of his other boxing attire. Even though the Ali Center had information about boxing, his religion, and his perspectives on life, the center had nothing about PD. So that's where I got the idea to do this project on Parkinson's disease and Ali. The same year the Ali Center was opened, he was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom Award. 2 years after the Michael J. Fox Foundation was created, scientists discovered that stem cells may be a way to treat Parkinson's disease through embryonic eggs, but because of ethical reasons, this method could not be used to treat PD. 9 years later after that discovery, on June 3, 2016, we lost one of the greatest boxers of all time, Muhammad Ali. He was a well-loved man, and people of all colors and religions looked up to him in and out of the ring. A year later, after Ali's passing in August 2017, a study was funded by the Michael J. Fox Foundation, which found that people with Parkinson's who injected themselves each week with exenatide, an anti-diabetic medication, for 1 year performed better on movement tests than those who received a placebo, which is a drug that has no effect. There is currently still no cure for this disease. However, there are ways to lower the risk of getting the disease. The Mayo Clinic says research shows that caffeine, which is found in things like coffee, tea, and Coca-Cola, may reduce the risk. WebMD goes on to say there's research that shows people who eat more fruits and vegetables, higher fiber foods, fish, less red meat, and dairy may have protection against PD. Even with these precautionary measures, the disease can still be an unpredictable opponent. In order to beat PD, we will need to embrace Ali's spirit of courage and tenacity as we continue our search for a cure.